Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining me for this explainer. Let's jump right into it because the world of work, it's moving incredibly fast right now. Think about management just a decade or two ago. It looks completely different than what we're dealing with today. We're living in an era totally defined by hybrid work, completely new business strategies, and of course, the massive explosion of AI into our daily routines. And because corporate culture has evolved so much, the manager's role absolutely has to evolve right alongside it. You literally can't rely on the old playbook anymore. So today, we're going to unpack the top 7 skills every modern manager needs to master by the year 2026, straight from the latest research.
To really understand where we're going, we kind of have to look at where we've been. In the past, management was almost entirely about task supervision, right? Making sure people were at their desks, clocking in, churning out widgets. It relied on a super strict hierarchy and a very directive top-down style. But looking toward 2026, that focus has completely flipped. Today's manager has to be a future-forward leader. We're talking about a developmental approach where coaching totally replaces commanding. It's all about leveraging AI-enabled workflows rather than just, supervising tactical projects. So the big takeaway here is this. To succeed and attract the best talent today, you've got to combine high-level people skills with serious technological fluency.
All right, let's move to section 1, human connection, specifically emotional intelligence and communication. So with teams spread out across different cities, time zones, and home offices, physical distance makes intentional human connection more vital than ever before. And that connection starts right here, with emotional intelligence or EQ. Basically, EQ is your ability to understand and manage your own emotions, while quickly processing and empathizing with what others are feeling and needing. Now, why is this our number 1 skill? Well, because rapid change is the new normal. Strategic pivots and staffing shifts are happening constantly. Managers who master EQ provide this absolutely crucial anchor of psychological safety for their teams. When you aren't in the same physical room to read the vibe, high EQ helps you sense when someone is struggling. It creates an environment where your team actually feels safe to take creative risks and ask hard questions without the paralyzing fear of failure. Okay, so how do we actually pull that off in a hybrid world? Well, effective communication is way more than just talking. First up, active listening without distractions. And yes, that means no stealthily checking emails during a Zoom call. Doing that builds incredible trust. Next, you need continuous feedback loops so people actually feel heard and recognized. But your asynchronous tools, those are lifesavers. Creating strong agendas gives everyone context before a virtual meeting even starts, and setting up communication platform guidelines prevents total chaos. Everyone needs to know exactly when to shoot over a quick chat versus when to schedule a live video call. And finally, sending thorough, actionable post-meeting follow-ups makes sure that even the teammate who is out of the office stays perfectly aligned. Moving on to section 2, forward-looking mechanics. This is all about strategy, data, and AI. As AI takes over more and more operational and repetitive tasks, managers are getting freed up to focus strictly on future strategic outcomes. Which brings us to digital fluency. By 2026, this is not optional. It is an absolute must. As a manager, you need a solid grasp on capabilities like ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. Look, you don't need to be a software engineer, but you absolutely must understand how AI-enabled workflows are reshaping your specific industry. In a hybrid setup, your team is going to rely heavily on asynchronous collaboration, meaning people are working on the same project but at totally different times of the day. Mastering these digital tools ensures your team operates as efficiently as possible, allowing them to dive into deep creative work without being bottlenecked by constant live meetings. All that freed up time and new tech feeds directly into our next skill, strategic decision-making. Managers are increasingly expected to look way beyond the day-to-day grind. You need cross-team collaboration to get a holistic view of the broader organization's goals. You need scenario planning, preparing for both the best and worst-case outcomes so you're never caught off guard. But the true magic? That happens when you combine quantitative tracking, like your KPIs and analytics, with qualitative tracking. Hard data is fantastic, but a truly great manager also weighs the company culture, project pain points, and individual employee needs. You literally have to understand the human why behind the numbers to make bulletproof, fully informed strategic decisions. All right, into section 3 we go. Nurturing culture, focusing on adaptability, talent growth, and inclusivity. Building highly resilient, autonomous, and diverse teams requires a totally new mindset. I actually love this quote straight from our source material. Managers are now more like coaches, helping their teams become autonomous leaders. This perfectly captures that shift we were talking about at the very beginning. You're moving from being an output supervisor to a talent developer. When employees feel like their professional growth is a genuine priority, they are so much more engaged and way more likely to stick around. So how do you do this? Regular one-on-ones. And these shouldn't just be boring status updates. They are golden opportunities to understand individual pain points, curate specific development plans, and delegate work with actual growth in mind. Plus, when your team can operate autonomously, you get more time for that long-term strategic thinking we just covered. To foster that kind of environment, modern managers really need to embody a few core cultural leadership traits. First, an always learning mindset. Doing small, intentional experiments with new tech helps you adapt without getting completely overwhelmed. Second is change management. By staying calm and keeping a clear vision, you provide immense stability for your team during big corporate pivots. Next up, bias awareness. Today's managers lead incredibly diverse teams, and actively seeking out diverse perspectives creates an environment where everyone can do their absolute best work. And finally, transparent decision-making. Even when the outcome isn't exactly what people wanted, transparency grounded in integrity gives your employees a profound sense of security and trust in your leadership. And finally, Section 4, Actionable Takeaways. Let's talk about actually developing your managerial skills. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, this sounds great, but I'm already swamped. So let's shift from what you need to learn to exactly how a busy professional can acquire these skills without burning out. Here is a clean, really memorable roadmap for upskilling. Step 1, self-audit your current abilities. Be brutally honest about your strengths and weaknesses. Step 2, please do not try to learn all 7 of these at once. Pick just 1 or 2 skills per quarter. Use a micro-learning approach. Maybe take a short online course, or just practice a specific communication tactic during your weekly meetings. Step 3, seek mentorship. Find leaders whose style you really admire and ask them for raw, unbiased feedback. The amazing news here, which is totally backed by research, is that these management skills aren't just innate personality traits. They can absolutely be developed through targeted practice. So I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative question to chew on. Which of these 7 skills will define your leadership in 2026? Are you going to be the master of emotional intelligence? The strategic wizard leveraging AI? Or maybe the inclusive coach building the next generation of autonomous leaders? Look, the future of work is already here, and the transition from a task supervisor to a modern, digitally fluent coach is entirely in your hands. Pick one skill today, start that micro-learning journey, and watch your team absolutely thrive. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really encourage you to take action on what we explored today.